Hi, I'm Dubber. I'm the director of Music Tech Fest, and this is the MTF podcast. Now, while I was in South by Southwest last week, I had the distinct pleasure of sitting down for an hour or so with Björn Ulvaeus, well-known Swedish music tech investor, film producer, stage musical composer and musical director, guitarist, record producer, songwriter, and former member of the Hootenanny Singers. He also had another band with whom he won the Eurovision Song Contest and had, to put it mildly, some hit records. In fact, they were one of the top 5 biggest selling artists in the world ever. We talk music production gear, digital avatars, the downsides of fame, the role of technology in creativity, what it feels like to suddenly have complete artistic freedom, and Auddly, an embedded app for end-to-end tracking of artist rights and songwriting splits. Such an honour to talk to one of the Bs in ABBA. Let's start with a mic check.
So this is how I talk, roughly. This is my level.
Your level of speaking.
Okay?
It's absolutely fine. Yeah. You shouldn't change it just for me.
Oh, people say I have a radio voice.
Do you miss your calling?
I probably have, yes.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, well, we can just start. Björn Ulvaeus, thank you so much for joining us on the MTF podcast.
Pleasure.
First of all, of course, thank you so much for everything that you've done over the last however long it's been. It's just an incredible contribution.
Thank you.
Is there something about Sweden that makes what you did possible?
No, I don't think so, because what we did was despite the fact that we came out of Sweden, because back then, in 1974, when we won the Eurovision Song Contest, nothing out of Sweden was ever listened to in the outside world. Mm-hmm. You know, we actually sent demo tapes to record companies in Britain, America, throw them in the garbage bin. They didn't even listen. Wow. The only one we got back was Playboy Records wanted to release a single. But so we won the Eurovision, and that's when what they call the Swedish pop wonder started, really, because then people, suddenly maybe it's not so bad coming out of Sweden. Mm-hmm. And I think we started something with Swedish songwriters and producers, that the feeling that it could be done. Mm-hmm. But you see, before then, people didn't even think it was worth investing in, right, because it couldn't be done and no one would listen anyway. Sure. And then suddenly here we are, and it's the other way around.
Absolutely. Well, Sweden is one of 3 net exporters of music in the world.
Yeah.
And per capita, the biggest.
It's fabulous. Yeah. I love it.
So you've actually set the groundwork for a real kind of burgeoning industry.
Yeah, I don't want to boast, but I think we did, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're quite entitled to. Yeah. But what is it now about Sweden? I mean, I know that you've kind of opened those doors, but there's something really special about Swedish pop songwriting, pop production. Yeah. It's internationally huge. What do you think makes that still possible?
It's to begin with, it's a small country with a small market, so it was always very clear. It's always very clear to everyone that you have to reach outside. Mm. And also we have a long tradition of teaching English at school, and Swedes, the ordinary Swede you meet in the street would speak English. Mm. So that's a help. And what else is there? It just happens to be. It could have been Denmark, it could have been, but it is Sweden. And I as little as I know exactly why the ABBA songs are still being played, as little do I know about why Sweden is a net exporter of music. It's very hard to explain. I don't think anyone can.
Right. I guess the way that the songwriting royalties are set up today, you would be one of the biggest beneficiaries of that, particularly in Sweden. But I get the sense that the system is kind of broken, and that's something that you're trying to do now is trying to address that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I'm as a songwriter and an artist, I understand the problems today of artists and songwriters not being paid because the metadata at source is wrong, which further down the line create conflicts, and people don't pay out the money that they should be paying out. Not because they don't want to, the Spotifys and what have you. It's because they don't know exactly who to send it to, because there's a conflict. One of the writers feels that he should have 25%, and the other writers feel he should have 20%, and there's a conflict.
Sure.
and when I was introduced to the idea of Auddly about 4 or 5 years ago, I saw the problem being solved by Auddly, which is you create the metadata at source during the creative process. That's when you can, you have a session, you work together with someone for a day, and at the end of the day, you know exactly what the split should be between you. You don't even have to discuss that. But when a third guy comes in from Tokyo who puts something on, then you can decide within the Auddly app what the split should be, and suddenly you have a decision and you have the truth about a song. Not only the split, but you also have publish, you have writers, you have the name of it, you can put the lyric and everything in there, and which means that this doesn't have to be recreated a year later when the song finally is released, which is what's happening today.
Sure.
Phone calls, emails, who did what? Was he in on that? Oh, I don't think so. Yes, I think he was. That kind of trying to piece it together afterwards, which is so detrimental to, and I know as a songwriter, when we started, getting paid, Benny and me, so that we had artistic freedom and financial freedom, that's when we got better. That's when we could spend days and days and days honing our craft, as it were, getting better at writing. And this is what I, with Auddly, wish for today's songwriters. They shouldn't be in a hurry. They should get paid for what they do in time and quickly, so that they can spend time on what they're best at, songwriting.
And develop the craft over that time.
And develop the craft, because it is a craft. It is a talent, of course, something perhaps you were born with, but above all, it is hard work. And it is a matter of getting rid of garbage, in a way. Benny and I threw away probably 97% of whatever we came up with, because it wasn't good enough.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of songwriters who want to go digging through that just for...
But we never settled, for
Sure.
for half good, when we knew that, no, this is not quite where it should be.
Right.
And I wish, every songwriter that freedom, that space, that time to be able to do that and not release average stuff because he had someone breathing down his neck.
Right. Right. I wonder where that comes from. Can I ask, what did your parents do, and how did that affect where you've ended up today?
I come from a small town, population 25,000 perhaps, in the south of Sweden. And my family was lower middle class, I think. My dad worked as a foreman on a paper mill, and my mum was my mom. She was at home. So there was no music really in that home.
Not a musical family?
No, not really. My father played the mandolin and sang sometimes when he got drunk. But other than that, very little music. But I had a cousin who was very musical. He was 1 year older than me. And he's the one who dragged me into playing guitar and starting bands and stuff.
And was that encouraged?
Well, yes, they could see that I had a lot of fun, and it didn't hurt my schoolwork. So yes, they were supportive.
Fantastic. If you hadn't, just curious, if you hadn't ended up doing this, what would you have become?
I had plans because I had two uncles who were very, very successful in the paper industry. They were industry leaders.
Right.
So I looked up to them, and I thought I want to be like that. Music was never, even thought of. never thought of it. So I was to become a civil engineer,
Right.
and become like them, an industry leader.
Is that where your interest in technology comes from?
No, I think it comes from actually when I started recording and producing in the mid-'60s. And pop music has always been driven by technology. So I was sort of surrounded by technology in the studio, and it changed, and new things came on the market, and we always used to get the latest. You know, Benny had the first Mini Moog and stuff like that. So technology was part of what we were doing. It was a natural, integral part of the music that we were creating. So that interest has followed me ever since.
Do you keep up, or did you stop at a particular technology that you were happy with?
No, I think I kept up. You know, we had the first digital machines. We recorded the last ABBA album on 3M digital machine. Uh-huh. And then afterwards, I'm kind of not hands-on, but kind of know what's happening.
Sure. What's your tool of choice at the moment if you get into a studio?
Well, it has to be a Pro Tool studio. Uh-huh. Our sound engineer in Stockholm works with Pro Tools, and I think it's absolutely marvelous the way he handles it and how quickly everything is done in comparison to what it used to be. Uh-huh. So that would be my favorite, and I'm not playing guitar that much these days, but Benny plays all kinds of keyboards, and he's got everything, all the latest stuff.
Right. Are you a gadget guy?
Not really. No, I wish I'd saved a lot of the gadgets that I bought over the years, but I haven't. They could be in a museum, but sadly, it's all gone.
I've heard word of the idea of a tour of holograms. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's not really holograms. It's the idea of creating a digital copy of yourself at a certain stage in life. And with ABBA, the ladies, I think, were the ones who chose about 1979. Uh-huh. So heads from 1979 are now created of us. And it's partly animation, but mostly digital. Mm-hmm. So it will be like a library of face muscles. And these digital copies can then sing whatever we like them to sing.
Right.
So we're taking them. We don't know whether it's going to be a tour or stationary, permanent somewhere in the world. We haven't decided that yet. But that it would be like an attraction, a new thing. Avatars, digital copies, singing the old songs with the old voices, but with the faces from 79. And it will show an attraction, a kind of different experience. I can't quite describe it because it's technology where technology is right now.
Right.
And that's what attracted us to it in the first place, that it was so exciting and we were the first ones to do it.
Amazing. So almost like a kind of a living Madame Tussauds.
No, it'll be on screens.
Uh-huh.
But with live musicians.
Yeah.
But what you see on the screens will be ABBA from 79, who will be able to interrelate with the audience in spooky ways.
Right. Wow.
And you'll feel as though they're there.
Uh-huh. Wow. I can't believe that nobody's termed it avatars. You can have that one.
Well, lots of people have called them avatars, actually.
Uh-huh. Okay, that's good. That's good to know. I'm not the only one who thought of that.
No.
Now, Nick Kershaw once said that the downside of success is fame. Would you go along with that? Do you think fame is something that is been a problem for you? Because, I mean, you are recognized absolutely everywhere you go, of course. And
not that much these days, but it certainly used to be that way. Yeah. No, I don't think so. I mean, we were based in Stockholm, which helped. Because in Stockholm, people wouldn't bother us. You know, we'd walk around the streets and everyone will know this is Agneta and Björn in the shopping, doing their shopping, you know. And he hasn't washed his hair. I didn't care. I just decided it's not going to affect my life.
Sure.
I will live as I want to anyway. And it would have been different, I think, had we been based in New York or London or some place like that.
Right.
But in Stockholm, it worked.
People were so polite.
Yes.
Interesting,
Yes.
interesting. Do you still follow Eurovision?
Not that much. Maybe I will tune in and look at a few of the songs, but I don't. It's too many songs. It's too long. I cannot concentrate.
I noticed that the Swedish entrant this year also wrote the British entrant. Which is
I read about that too.
That's
amazing.
Yeah,
this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly, hedging his bets a little bit.
Yeah.
What was the moment for you that you realised that you could pretty much do whatever you wanted as a career? Along the musical journey, you could sort of go off in any direction. Was there a point that you thought, this is it, I have complete freedom of control?
Yes. In one way, I felt that, you know, when we won the Eurovision Song Contest, I remember clearly waking up early the morning after thinking, my God, what has happened? I mean, today, literally overnight, we are known all over the world, and yesterday we were known in Sweden and maybe in Northern Europe, but that was all. Mm-hmm. So that was the first time it struck me. But then we had a tough time after winning because everyone kind of assumed that we were a one-hit wonder, and we were not supposed to be able to have a follow-up because they never do
Sure.
they?
Sure.
And so we had a struggle with the singles that we released after Waterloo. But we came back with SOS and Mamma Mia in end of 75, I think, or so. So sometime in 76, both Benny and I felt, we have complete freedom and you let our imagination free and we can do anything. And we want to develop, we want to be different from album to album and to make people feel that we make such an effort in developing and getting better at stuff and changing and never staying the same. And that's how we, towards the end of the 70s, we started thinking, well, maybe we can expand. Maybe we can... Drama and music isn't a very interesting field. Mm. We thought, we have to do that. So we did. But it's all down, I would say, to that wonderful thing, copyright, because we had the freedom. Mm-hmm. We didn't. There was no one telling us, you have to be ready by Friday. You know, you had these songs are too sad. You have to write something upbeat. No one was telling us.
Sure.
Nobody at all, wow. which was a marvelous kind of artistic freedom to have, which I wish, for any creator to have.
You mentioned the drama side of things. Obviously, there are stage shows. There's now a couple of films.
Yes.
Have you thought about games? Have you done games? Is there a next phase?
We haven't done games yet. I guess we haven't come across the right people who are in that field. We've never been approached. But I'm not a stranger to that. I think it's a very interesting world, and I would like to kind of get into that too, definitely.
Right.
It's a new avenue which we haven't explored yet.
Fantastic. I think there's probably a lot of people listening to this that go, I've got just the idea.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
So you're open to that?
Yes,
You're
absolutely.
on the record as that. Are you optimistic about the role of technology in creativity? Do you think it's sort of opening up new opportunities for people to come up with new ideas, or do you think that people are using them as a kind of a shortcut?
I both, actually.
Yeah.
It's a shortcut in the way that it makes everything you do sound so good from the word go.
Sure.
Imagine two guys in a cubicle with a stand-up piano and an acoustic guitar banging away, singing some kind of gibberish, Anglo, like English gibberish, and not being very good singers.
Uh-huh.
For those guys to get excited over something, well, there's only a good melody. Only a good melody can do that.
Uh-huh.
Whereas songwriters today can sort of play, anything they do is already there, and they can add strings and they can add everything and make even their voices, sound good.
Auto-tune.
Which makes, I think, it's my theory, it makes you settle for less when it comes to the actual song.
Mm-hmm.
Because it sounds good already, doesn't it?
Right. And do you think that that stops people from pushing a little bit further?
Yeah, exactly. Wow. I don't know if I'm right, but that's... I know for certain that the only way we could get a kick, Benny and I, was if we had written something really, really good. Mm-hmm. Because it sure as hell didn't sound good.
One of the things that people observe about your songs is that, on the one hand, obviously they're incredibly catchy pop songs, but also they're incredibly intricate and thoughtful and complex.
Yeah.
To what extent is there a kind of is that the ABBA trick? Is that there is the complexity hidden within this simplicity of melody?
Always searching for that wonderful, simple melody. Uh-huh. That's what we did. But that wonderful, simple melody doesn't necessarily have only 3 chords. It can have more chords. And especially if you explore it in a studio, trying various styles and trying various ways of doing it. And above all, backing vocals, intricate backing vocals, things that you couldn't write down as an arranger, but you can only try. You're doing something, the girls would do something, and you'd say, no, try that instead, just that note there. And suddenly something happens.
Right.
And that's where the intricacy comes from, I think.
Right. In harmony, particularly.
In harmony, particularly.
Right. Wow. Do you think, you've had this incredible success as a pop band, and there have been a number of incredibly successful pop bands. Do you think there's still the opportunity for that to happen now? Is there a possibility for there to be a next ABBA?
With a kind of 35, 40 year
absolutely and
career.
Huge success. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, definitely. Of course it's possible.
Where should we look for it?
There is someone out there as we speak. It's just a matter of finding them and them finding us and them having the right circumstances to grow and to become something. Because we were, completely organically born, if you want to. I was in a band, and I was supposed to be a civil engineer. Benny was in another band. We met. We could just as easily not have met.
Sure.
And we found each other, started writing together. And then suddenly I meet this lady who happens to be a singer. Just happens to be a very wonderful singer. And a few months after that, Benny happens to meet a lady also, and she happens to be a singer. This is all coincidence, all of it now.
Oh.
And as they were famous in their own right, a group was never discussed for, 2 or 3 years. We went on vacations together. We socialized. But we never talked about forming something together because they would go on their tours and we would go on ours and, and so forth. But during those vacations, we always brought guitars and we sang together. And we said, it sounds good.
Uh-huh. Whose idea was it?
No, it was, we were getting bored of doing the stuff we were doing. This was purely in Sweden, in Swedish. And we wanted so badly to do pop songs in English, more than anything. The Beatles had inspired us. And we had to pay the rent, we had to do this stuff in Swedish instead. But we deep down, we wanted to do pop in English. So as an experiment, we said, why don't we go in and do a pop song together? Yeah. Which was a song called People Need Love from 1972. It was a minor hit. And even then, we didn't start on a regular basis to work together. It wasn't until, I think, 1973. That's when we started out as Agneta, Benny, Björn, and Annifrid. Yeah. We didn't have a name. Eventually, we had to decide on a name. I think it was in connection with Eurovision 1974. We kind of had to have a name because that, our first names, it was too long, too cumbersome to say for DJs.
Sure, particularly English-speaking ones.
Yes. And DJs had started calling us by our initials or our first name. So they started calling us ABBA.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we wanted to be cool, have a cool name like the Rolling Stones or something like that. But in the end, we didn't have a choice because everybody they were calling us ABBA anyway.
Yeah, wow.
And it's a lousy name. but once you fill it with something, it becomes, different, doesn't it?
It's taken on its own meaning.
Even the Beatles is a terrible name.
Yeah, it's a shocking bad name, isn't it?
Yes.
And now there's a museum with that band's name on it. I mean, that must be a strange journey.
Yeah, it was a strange journey. But I was the one who worked with the content. And I did it because I felt I had to. They were building a museum, ABBA museum in Stockholm, and the city wanted it, and we said yes to it. But then I thought, what if that is crap? What if that is bad?
Yeah.
I'll have to live with it because it's going to be there for years and years and years. So I got involved, and the way I handled it was that I looked at myself as, kind of a historical figure. He was someone else. Uh-huh. I was telling his story.
Right.
So that way I became more detached. And it's a fascinating story. It's interesting. Have you been there?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And one of the things that really strikes you about it is the distinct visual style that you always brought to the music. Music wasn't just something that you listened to for you. There was something that you watched.
Yeah.
And I think that was a real landmark thing that you guys did because, it sort of set the way for things like MTV and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Where did the idea for having a distinct look like that come from?
Well, in the beginning, we wanted to look as outrageous as possible doing the Eurovision Song Contest because the theory was that we would get noticed that way. Mm-hmm. And even if we ended up number 7, we'd have a certain impact because people would remember us.
Sure.
And that's why we chose the song as well, which was distinctly not Eurovision song material, right. Waterloo.
Yeah.
So that's where it started, and then it went on from there. That we thought it was fun, to have these strange costumes and changing them all the time, having different looks.
Yeah.
It became kind of trademark. But then again, I think that our contemporaries, most of them, did the same thing, didn't they? I'm not sure, but
I don't know if to the same extent.
No, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I mean, for instance, I live in Umeå, and there's a guitars museum there, and hanging on the wall in pride of place, there is a star-shaped guitar covered in silver glitter.
They did for me, yes.
Yeah. And that, I mean, you look at a star-shaped guitar, and of course, all you think of is ABBA.
Yes.
And so that visual connection, I think, is something that you did incredibly well.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you see that still happening today? Do you think this?
It's difficult today, isn't it? Because nothing is outrageous anymore. It doesn't matter what you wear. It's difficult. Right. But I mean, we had our costumes, but what we had also was two fantastic singers who happened to be stunningly beautiful at the same time. I mean, I was talking about organic in the beginning. I mean, all this just happened, and it came together. And that's the difficulty of something new happening. You know, all the ingredients have to be there, and it has to coincide, and they have to meet and make this whole, which doesn't happen very often.
Is there anything you wish you'd done differently?
We didn't quite know what our identity was in '74. Were we a glam rock group? Pop group? What the hell? We didn't know what we were. And that made it kind of difficult afterwards to follow up, and we chose the wrong songs. It was only with SOS and Mamma Mia that it dawned on us, yes, we are a pop group, pure and simple. And I wish we could have found that out that earlier, actually.
Yeah.
It's nothing I regret, but that it could have been. Had we been more clear-sighted, we would have seen, no, we're not like them or them or them. We're this. We're a pop group with European roots.
That sounds like something you're incredibly proud of.
Yes, I am. Yeah, because we were all, four of us, fed, from early childhood. We were fed all kinds of music from all over Europe, from the radio and elsewhere. Which I don't think that our English contemporaries, or certainly not American contemporaries, would have been.
Right.
They were not exposed to Italian ballads when they grew up.
Sure.
Probably not. Not here in Austin.
So what are you listening to now?
I've just finished auditions in London for Mamma Mia the Party, which will open at the O2 in London on the 19th of September. Mm-hmm. And it's such fun. It's a great thing I'm doing, which also born out of curiosity and wanting to experiment and seeing, can I do that? Can that happen? Those things are irresistible to me, Once I see a vision of something, I just have to pursue it.
The films, like the museum, I guess, could have gone very badly, and it must be such a relief that they're so great.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, from the word go, Mamma Mia the musical, which will be 20 years in April.
Really? Wow.
In London.
Wow.
Yeah, 20 years. In April.
That's a career in itself.
Yes, it is. But I mean, from the word go, that was an insane idea. It could have been, it could have gone so wrong.
Sure.
I mean, could you write a musical backwards like that, using existing songs? Oh, no one had done that.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to try. But I was ready to pull the plug anytime during that process.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Had I felt it was not good for the group. But it turned out it has been really good for ABBA as well. And this way to branch out, to try new territories, is something I think that more groups than us could do. But maybe they don't have the urge to do it, or, they don't want to do it. But certainly the possibility is there to branch out and try new territories with a catalogue of songs that is so well known.
And it's also, again, set a template for how these things are done. You did that with pop music in 73, you've done it with 74, and you've done it with stage musicals now as well. Other people are going through people's back catalogues and
yes,
retrofitting stories around them.
Yes. Everyone's doing that.
Yeah.
Some with less success, but it's interesting.
What are you most looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to my next grandchild. I will have her in June, and she will be my 8th.
Wow.
And it's an extra bonus with her because it's my youngest daughter, her first child, and she and her husband has taken over a restaurant hotel complex that I built in my old hometown.
Right, wow.
And they are the couple who runs that, which makes me very proud, and it's kind of such a wonderful thing to be able to come back to your hometown and do something for it, something that means something for that community, and to come down to a kind of local level and walk the old streets of Västervik and feel I'm grounded here, especially when you are onto such incredibly global projects as I am with, Mamma Mia, the party will be rolled out in Berlin, Las Vegas, and all over the place, and the Avatar thing, ABBA, is also global. And even Auddly is global.
Yeah.
So that thing of coming back to your roots and being able to enjoy that and being able to get something out of that is wonderful.
And now you're a tech entrepreneur.
Yes.
Was that expected?
No, I couldn't say. No.
Because the launch for that is here in Austin tomorrow. What are you expecting?
I'm expecting people in the music business to finally understand what it is that we're trying to do. And I'm so proud that we have Avid on board as a partner, and Universal, showing the rest of the business that this is it. This is the future. We have to go this route in order for our creative communities to create even more and better stuff, because it's transparent, it's quicker and more accurate payments, stuff that is important to support the songwriter. As I was, explaining to you before, it's really, really important to have that at least some degree of security when you want to create something.
Sure. And I guess that's something that you've arrived at yourself and are ready to share with a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Bjorn, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. The brilliant Björn Ulvaeus of ABBA, and so much more. And that's the MTF podcast. If you enjoyed, and why wouldn't you, please send a link to someone, share it on Facebook or Twitter, or just say nice things about it to your friends. Lots more brilliant guests in the pipeline, and MTF events coming up in Germany, Croatia, Scotland, Norway, Sweden, of course, and more to come. But in the meantime, you have a great week, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.